What's happening, everybody? So for this video, I wanted to talk about swapping out your Hellcat fuel pump if it's starting to show the same signs that mine was, where I had a decreasing fuel pressure curve. Basically, the longer the load was applied to the engine, the less fuel pressure that I had. Injector duty cycle went up, and obviously you never want that, especially when you're at high speeds and high loads. So it was time to put a new fuel pump in the car. And obviously there's videos, how-to type videos, floating around on YouTube that are not too bad. The thing is that I tried to do one of those and I just never could get the lighting right, the camera angles or anything else. Plus I'm running this deal solo, so it didn't work out that way. But in this video, I'm going to show you some of the tools that you're going to need. And I'm also going to be going over the pump itself. This is the one that I actually took out of the car, the one that was failing. So we're going to disassemble that. We're going to kind of go through that a little bit and also go through some of the tools that you're going to need. First and foremost, for this job, and believe me, this is not even really part of a negotiation, you've got to get one of these tools. This is an OTC 6599 lock ring tool. And this is the one that you're going to need for any of these late model Mopars. And the way that it works is these teeth here, right there and right there, fit into some grooves that are in that lock ring. You will also need a breaker bar. If you notice, this is 1/2 inch. You're going to need a 1/2 inch breaker bar. The amount of tension that's on that ring is actually surprisingly high. And with this tool and a breaker bar, I was actually, and it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, you're going to turn it about 10 degrees to the left to pop that ring off of there, and you'll hear it pop twice. There's two kind of sections to that ring locking into that keeper that's in the tank. And I was on this, to give you an idea for how much torque I was putting on this thing, I was actually on it by about the same amount as if you were just kind of snugging up some lug nuts on a rim, like getting your initial torque in right before you hit it with a torque wrench to say 120 foot-pounds. It felt like I was snugging up lug nuts. That's how much pressure I was putting on this thing as it was attached to the tool on that lock ring to actually pop it on, and then to get it, or pop it off, and then to get it back on, just as much pressure. So for anybody that wants to tackle this with a drift or, hammer and a screwdriver, something like that, good luck to you. This tool is about 50 bucks. It is worth its weight in gold. And by the way, this thing is stout. It's heavy, it's solid steel. You could probably lift an engine and swing it around with this thing. Not that I recommend it, but it is a very stout, very beefy piece right there. So that'll get the ring popped off. Now, one thing you're going to find out really quickly is before you even get started with this job, figure out a way to get the gas tank, the fuel level in the gas tank, I should say, below 1/4 of a tank. I would highly recommend running the thing down until your check fuel light comes on. The tank is at kind of a bit of an angle, and this will kind of give you an idea. You see how that hat's at a bit of an angle there. Actually, it would sit like this to the front of the car. The issue that you run into is that this thing is spring loaded, as you can see, and it's actually spring loaded like that to hold the bucket that the pump is in, to hold that steady to the bottom of the tank. When that ring pops off, the springs on the bottom of this hat let go, and these things have got the tension. If you guys have ever worked on a small caliber pistol, the slide spring that's in a, like a 380 or, maybe an early, low pressure 9mm, it's not that far removed from this. And when this thing pops up, the whole thing just goes pop and it just comes flying up. So just know that coming into this, it's going to pop up and it's going to surprise you a little bit if you're not paying attention, or at least know that that's going on. Other tools that you're going to need, highly recommend Get you a small pick or a small screwdriver and an assortment of hooks or picks. The reason why you're going to need that is on the fuel line there is a clip. One of the clip type fittings pops right into here. Well, the clip is the type for some of the earlier cars, and I don't know if all the Hellcat variants have this, but it's the older rocking clip type where it's got two hooks at the bottom and it makes basically the letter U. If you get one of them popped off, it's like the other one digs in even deeper. So you want to have a couple of hooks to be able to get in there. It's like playing a game of Operation, basically. You're going to get in there and basically kind of pry those things back. If you get one of them started, you can just get your other pick or your other, maybe a small screwdriver, and just barely set it in that clip to where it's sticking up a little bit. And then you can take the hooks and you can actually get it moving. Once you get it moving, it's pretty easy, but it's very fidgety. And just don't get frustrated. It's self-explanatory once you get it started. You just got to fidget with it a little bit. But another top tip for you, the clip itself is actually directional. And you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that you will want to keep the legs of that clip to the inside of the pump, and then the top part of the clip, it's an asymmetrical clip facing away. You want the legs to the back. If you don't, it will still clip, but it won't seat all the way. So just don't make that mistake. So again, OTC, I always just about forget the name of this thing, OTC 6599 lock ring tool, mandatory. If you try to do this with just old school mallet and you know, like a brass drift or something like that, you're going to tear something up if you've never done it before. Again, this tool, worth its weight in gold, and it makes the job go real quick, super fast. I mean, I can knock one of these things out. It would take me longer to gather the tools and get the seat bottom out of the car than it would take for me to actually do the work, except for the clip. If the clip were giving me a problem, then that would be the longest part of the entire job. So let's get into this pump. So we've already taken the hat off of the thing. This connector connects to the bottom of the hat right there. You just press down on this little guy right here, and that's what will release it. The exact same clip goes onto the top of the hat as well, except the only difference is it'll have a lock. So that's your connector. On your pump, you'll also have your sending unit. That'll tell basically that's the gas gauge in essence. Now, the interesting thing comes with this pump itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to disassemble this thing. I'm going to take the pump actually out of the bucket, which is kind of what it is. There we go. So you have this common bucket here, and there's a one-way check valve at the bottom. And then you've got basically your bypass, I believe, is part of this bottom portion of this little manifold looking thing right here that the pump is actually feeding. Interestingly enough, this is the fuel line that wraps around to go, that feeds this manifold. This whole thing is common, and it comes out this port right here. So regardless of how big this line is, this is all that's feeding that beast right here. Realistically, it's just feeding this common manifold. You've got your sock down here at the bottom, and this whole bucket that it sits in sits at the bottom of the tank. This stays full of fuel and gives the pump itself a baffle with which to draw fuel from at all times. So there's your little valve here at the bottom. I guess that's your bypass that feeds that portion right there. Basically just refeeds the bucket full of bypassed fuel. But that is it in a nutshell. I figured you guys might want to see that if you've never seen one of these stock pumps. Kind of interesting. The pump itself, these hoses are the shrink fit kind, the plastic shrink fit kind. So you could just replace the pump itself if you needed to. Probably be a whole lot less expensive than the cost of one of these pumps. It can range anywhere, around $1,000 for the entire unit. They ain't cheap. But this does come off. This whole apparatus comes off. It's still attached up here, but you'd have to get a new hose for up there and then pull the sock off and just reapply everything. Run the risk of breaking stuff doing that, and besides, I just wanted a whole new unit. So how did it end up? Well, I can tell you this, the car now has very strong fuel pressure. In fact, I'm commanding, or the tune is commanding 79 and change PSI in terms of fuel pressure at wide open throttle. It gets there like that, maintains the pressure all the way across the RPM range through some very significant loads. And the pump duty cycle hovers around 82%. I think max is 84. So I don't even think the pump is working near as hard as the old one was. Well, I know for a fact it didn't because, well, the old one couldn't maintain fuel pressure. So anyway, I hope that helps you out. Again, one last time, OTC, what was it, $65.99 for this tool. You're going to have that, a breaker bar. And by the way, guys, I mean breaker bar. I'm not talking about the 1/2-inch ratchet will work. It might, but you will find out really quickly just how much tension is on that lock ring. You'll find out that it's a lot. So you're going to need something fairly substantial. Don't force it. Don't jerk it. Just nice steady torque, pulling back on it or pushing forward on it to lock it back in will be good. You'll hear it go pop, pop, and then you're all the way back in. You also should have some factory marks that kind of index that thing for you. One other thing, for the gasket, there's a rubber O-ring gasket that goes at the bottom of this. I would recommend some, actually it goes on the top of it. Anyway, I would recommend coating that, put a light coating of motor oil or something like that on it just to make that lock ring kind of seat down and not grab that rubber as you're locking it in. So with that, hopefully that helps you out. We're going to wrap it up. It's not that big of a job. If you've got the right tools, bring a little bit of patience with you. Make sure that gas tank is as out of gas as you can possibly get it so that you don't spill gas all over the place. Again, the gas tank is kind of kicked over and it is shallow. Also, always recommend disconnecting your battery for this. No sparks, no kaboom. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Y'all have a great one. Adios.